Anyhow, Barnsley's got up and started singing with Swanee. And next thing you know, Bonds walked on stage. And it was 2 weeks before, because the next day he went back to England 2 weeks before he died. So I kind of, I look back and think I was the last one to have a blow with Bond in Australia. And you could hear, Swanee's going, oh, and then Barnsley go, oh, and then way above that, Bond's going, I couldn't even think about. And that made me realise the scope of Bond's voice back then. Because I just thought he was a rough rock and roll singer, And like you say to me, how was it working with AC/DC back then? They were just a rough rock and roll band, But I look back and think, wow, the scope of his voice and the range.
Yeah, but he was prior to AC/DC was in the Valentines and so on. He used to actually sing harmonies. And,
yeah.
A lot of people don't realise that.
Of course. But just to see the three of them together and see why he became so popular is from that defining moment for me. He just outdid Barnsley and Swanee. And now Swanee's got a great voice. Barnsley can really screech it like the best, but Bond just overshadowed him.
Well, it's testament whenever you try and sing an AC/DC song, it's really hard. Be it Brian or Bond, it's near impossible for probably 80% of us.
It's time to land the Barracuda! Everybody do well! Do what they come on and do the Barracuda!
G'day, viewers. Today's podcast was brought to you by Koala Karma, the chill-out drink. Just sit back, relax, and... That's right. On today's podcast, Pete McFarlane. Pete McFarlane was in a band called Finch. Finch later became Contraband. In that band... And Pete ended up being in Swanee. He's recorded and played in so many bands and songs that you already know. Based from Sydney back in the day, but he lives on the Gold Coast now. And we get a bit wild on the stories at the end. But he's joined by Cal Millar. Cal Millar brought in Pete today from Kelts Entertainment. Cal's a sweetheart bloke, a booking agent on the coast that turns venues that have no clue into venues that have music, live music. So hang on to your hats, kids. This is a good one. I'm talking about a guy that's travelled with AC/DC, Dragon, all these stuff. So hang in, listen to this. All right. G'day, boys.
How you doing?
G'day, Pete McFarlane, Peter McFarlane, and Cal Millar.
How you going, man?
How about this?
How you going?
Yeah.
How about this?
This should be a bit of fun
now,
next hour.
What's your name?
Drew Crush. Yeah, welcome on. That's right. I don't often say that on this
Drew.
show. Mate, did you think when you gate crashed that party in Southport about 2 months ago that you'd be sitting in this room?
Funny story, that one, isn't it? Hey?
Oh, real funny
You
story.
never know your luck in a big city.
Yeah.
Mate, did you? Well, I don't mind talking about it because I don't actually know the people that we did that party for. It was like a wedding party.
Well, neither do we.
Yeah.
You don't? Well, did you see what happened?
idea.
Well, here's a great rock and roll story for everyone to kick off. Is that, you often do gigs and you don't know who they are, but you know if it's, say, a wedding sort of thing, there's a way to behave and sort of dress and sort of everything's, you got to keep the wedding nice. That particular wedding that you guys jumped the fence on, at the end, mate, the groom, he was wearing a pair of board shorts and he was fighting. He was a wild night. Did you see that? Do you remember
He
that?
was a wild man.
Yeah. I've been telling that story for a little while.
That was actually a great night. We're sitting on Pete's veranda having a couple of ales, as you do on a Saturday night. And we started talking about this band that we could hear. We thought it was someone with a stereo cranking it up. And we thought, hang on, that's too loud and too...
Yeah, no, I could tell it was a live band. Yeah.
Excellent.
And Pete's sitting there saying, hey, I got this act together, really. We should have a bit more of a listen. And I said, why don't we go and gate crash? So after talking about it for a couple of minutes, we thought,
a few bourbons later.
We'll go and knock on the door and just sort of ask what's going on. And sure enough, come in.
Brilliant. I haven't seen a gate crash for years. It's like no one gate crashes anymore. You know what I mean?
Well, it was actually your music that got us there in the first place, mate.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
mate.
beautiful. The old little cover band I'm in. Yeah, but
Yeah.
But it's like any time you go and see live music, I'm a bit of a slut for music, you know. My ears just follow it. And especially going to see live bands, I just itch to get up there and play, you know. It's one of those things I'm drawn to live music just so bad. It's not funny.
yeah. Actually, for the listener, I might. Yeah, that's you, Pete, speaking. So everyone knows that's you, Pete. Say good day. And Cal over here.
Well, see, Cal and I are mates, so we got a similar frequency range of voice, you know. I suppose that's why we get on, you know. It's one of those things. That...
Great heads for radio we have.
Mate. But you know what blew my mind is that, when you jumped the fence, you came down and said, we want to, do you mind if we listen in on your band? And you know what it's like if you're ever at a party, you go, who are these lads, you know? And then I think our bass player, Andy,
I know Andy,
yeah. He recognised you as, you know, and it was, and then once I got a chance to talk to Andy, I found out that, hang on a minute, that's Peter McFarlane, like a legendary drummer. And I've Google searched you since, and mate, you've been on some great records. Even a record that band, you know, that you jumped in on. We used to do a Swanee song for like about a year. A great song, If I Were a Carpenter.
Oh yeah, of course.
And
yeah.
you drummed on that.
Yeah, classic. Yeah.
That blows my mind. That's never happened.
We're actually just talking about the way on the way here, how we actually met. Well, in fact, we didn't meet. Sorry, I remember years ago living in King's Cross. As a young bloke does.
When you first moved over, wasn't it?
Yeah, back in ex-Kiwi days.
Wow.
Back in the, many moons ago, put it that way.
Yep.
And I had nothing to do on a Saturday night, so I went to Selena's, took my girlfriend along. And there was about 4 people in the place, 2 of them being me and my girlfriend. And there was these guys up on stage that, just mucking around, and then all of a sudden they kicked off, and bang, it just blew me away. My feet were sort of trying to dance to the music, but I was sort of stuck on the carpet, as you used to do in Selena's in those days.
Was that in Coogee?
Yeah.
Selena's in Coogee.
Yeah. And seriously, there was only 4 of us there, but they these guys blew me away, and then also blew up the PA and the amp about 3 songs later. And the only reason I knew their name was because they had a banner behind them saying Swanee. And many, many moons later, after being a Swanee groupie and following Swanee around everywhere they played, I run into this guy and make good friends, probably one of my best friends ever. Wow. And that was years later. So
what year do you reckon that would have been?
81.
Probably about 81, yeah.
80, 81.
Showing our
I
age.
think I played with him back then, yeah.
Do you understand how that was in all the bands and all the time I've been in? I would consider that like a great age to be in a band. Like I remember being young enough. My 14 was my very first gig, and that was to see Rose Tattoo and the Angels and ZZ Top. This big tour that came out. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I remember car parks full of cars. The days when you could still drive to a venue, and venues were filled with cars. You know what I mean? If you look at some of these old pubs now, right here on the Gold Coast, Burleytown Tavern, filled with cars, like car spaces. Yeah. Pubs used to have accommodation for cars.
Well, the Bondi Lifesaver used to be a big one for that. And many of the big bands that you still know now that all went through the Bondi Lifesaver. It was such a huge, iconic venue at the time, you know, all through the 70s and, into the 80s. I think we actually did one of the last gigs there. And I took a piece of the stage home after that because they were shutting down. And that was Chisel, a fellow that did Joe Cocker, tribute thing at the time, and Swanee. Yeah, with them. Wow. And I've since gone on to that and had a look at it, and that wasn't the actual last show. It must have been like the Friday or Saturday like that, but the night after was the last show. And that was just an outrageous night as well. But yeah, there's iconic venues that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember driving down, I can't remember which pub now, down the south side of Sydney somewhere, and Cultures were playing that night, and there was the queue actually went around the whole block 3 times. So I didn't bother queuing up, but that was the day. Those were the days.
Well, try and explain it to people now. Is that now that you've got instant contact with Twitter and all these sort of things? Back in that day, it was like the word of mouth. Like, this band is coming to your town. They're playing, and it was all through the word. And you knew they were coming, and you heard rock and roll stories of how wild they were, how great. You know what I mean? Now it's like too much.
Look, even I mean, we're looking at, say, 70s, 80s. Even a band I had here, I was playing here on the coast called Big Stick. You know, a lot of people a little bit older probably remember them. It was like the 10-piece band with Dog singing, of course, from the Bossa Nova Kids. He'd made his name with a little bit of a punk band, the Bossa Nova Kids. Yeah. We played at the Aluka on the beach there at Surface, underneath in the restaurant. And it was a little bit like we had a line up down the street to get into that Sunday afternoon sesh. Now, the Sunday afternoon sesh used to be the bee's knees, right? Yeah. And tiny little bar, and we just used to kick ass in there with a 10-piece band. I think Mark the Bowler and all sorts, and the old keyboard player who died not long back, the black dude. He's an iconic keyboard player on the coast. Mate, I'm getting that old. The brain cells just can't
come
remember.
Back. We'll be sitting in this chairs long enough. It'll come to
Wiley Reid, eh?
Wiley Reid, Wiley Reid. And, you know, he used to play there a lot. Those sort of iconic times have just disappeared. I put it all down to the mass amount of entertainment that you can see on the net these days. And people's attention spans are pretty small. So they can just flitter, you know, you go through Facebook. It's an interesting scenario too. You go through Facebook, you can be entertained for every 7 seconds by every post that you kind of go through. And you can go and click on somebody playing at their latest gig, or, you know, a little bit of, you know, somebody might be having a whinge about something or other, and you go and click on that, and you can, if you're interested enough, you'll keep watching it. If 7 seconds later, that doesn't suit me, you click on to the next. I think that has really taken over people's whole psyche and whole entertainment, you know, of what they do, and they sit at home and they watch this, rather than going out and seeing one band play for 3 hours, right? Because another big issue here is the venues aren't really supporting the better paid bands, you might say, because they're better bands. They'll put on some cheap ass band or some top 40 band, you know, which entertains the kids for a Friday or Saturday night. But it's not in their psyche to go out and see a live band anymore, like as you were saying in the earlier days.
I think that was changing though, Pete, luckily. I think people are getting sick of that 7 seconds of attention span you're talking about and actually want to focus on something nowadays. I think the music scene's actually evolving back to live music again.
Oh, I kind of agree with you there, but what I'm talking about is what's been happening, you know, and this is where things need to change. And, you know, as, you know, time will dictate, it will change. There's a few more venues now in Brisbane that are taking alternate stuff, which is great. You know, I'm starting to notice a few more gigs that we're starting to get. Like, you got gigs like Lefties, Brooklyn Standard, Sonny's House of Blues. Another gig just doing with a country band up there now called Johnny Ringo's. Just putting on country music. You know, these other venues are putting on a bit of rockabilly, bit of swing, bit of blues, bit of rock, bit of, you know. I'm thinking this is great because they're getting outside of that whole top 40 bullshit.
Yeah. It's like we're the guinea pigs for the internet, you know. And exactly what you're saying, Carl. There is some feeling that it just turned into this soulless, like the days of opening a record or even a CD and just staring at those pictures, because that's the only contact you had if you wanted to buy, unless you bought a magazine back in the day. And so the magic, there was a real magic.
It was, exactly.
Like when I was a real kid, I thought Kiss looked like that. I thought they were actually, you know what I mean? There was some sort of magic, right? But now it's like, geez, you just look on the internet. But I think you're right. As we stand right now, it's sort of like people have gone through this thing of like, okay, now if we open this little secret venue over here, the kids will come because there's definitely nothing happening.
Exactly right. And I think I was saying to Pete on the way here that the younger people who have been force-fed American mass-produced, if I can put it that way, radio content are now starting to sort of, through the internet, which is the positive side of it, are actually realising that there is some bloody good music out there. It might be 30 or 40 years old, but there are bands replicating it and maybe doing their modern twists on it. And they're starting to realise that, you know, there's more to...
I know there's a lot of young people getting into, say, 70s rock because of the diversity of it. Yeah. And it was also hard-edged. It's hard-edged enough to appeal to young people. You know, it is a definite kind of turnaround. But in the same token, something I was reading the other day, would you believe there's 5 producers over in the States that